everyone, my name is Primetime Moff and I am joined by my wonderful, illustrious co-host, Oddimus Prime. Now,
Hello.
whether you're watching... Oh, hello, Simon. Now, whether
Sorry.
you're watching us or listening to us, we welcome you to our weekly show, Transformers 84, 24, 40 years of rolling out. A show that in the years the brand's 40th anniversary, we are looking back, delving into the archives, delving into the vast history of the Transformers. Now, if you're new to the show, we'll be covering each year of the franchise in its own weekly episode with some special episodes throughout the year. So please like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications to make sure you don't miss any of this exciting Transformer goodness in this journey. So, Simon, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yes. Yes. We're up to 1991, a year that definitely took place.
Did it? Barely. just a little bit. Like, yeah, I think we're at the point where, some of the first episodes we really struggled to keep within the time limits. This one feels the opposite of actually, like, there's not as massive to talk about this year. We know that we
Yeah.
always thought there's going to be a point late 80s, early 90s where it kind of goes the dark time where it did not have quite as much going for it. But there will also be years going forward where we are going to be like, we need to split this up or we need to do two episodes. So, the fact that it survived this point is probably the best thing of it. But so it's not a year that I have any real recollection of from experiencing it. I didn't have any of the toys this year, other than kind of stuff that was classics. But the kind of new stuff wasn't this year. But we did. Let's before we get into the toys, let's chat through some bits of the year. So we didn't have a TV show. We had some comics were still ongoing. I think that's the year, that's the year that the Marvel comics in the US, the comic line ends. The UK is still going. I think we end in the next year, so it's not a massive amount, but certainly at this point it was a more challenging to grow the brand, and certainly to an extent, that was probably more challenging in America than it was in the UK. And one of the things I want to talk about before we can really talk about the toys this year is that there's a big influence on this year's stuff from the wonderful Andy Cousins, who sadly is no longer with us, passed away this year, which is a great shame. But I know we got to meet him at TFN 2022. He came in
Yep.
2022. And I think it was an interesting experience for him to come and meet the fandom and realised how much his work, and it was a job for him. Of course, it was a job for him. There was other lines he did, and he talked about them to an extent as well. But I think the chance to see how much people appreciated his work and really enjoyed it, and there's some he brought us some absolute stellar toys. When you look back at his entirety of his time, I think there's some absolute crackers in there that I'm sure we would all be very grateful to have in our collection if we had them. Did you get a chance to speak to him much at TFN?
I will fully admit I did not have a chat with him. I did. I saw some of the bits of the panels and stuff like that, but I didn't actually chat to him. But as you say, a lot of the stuff that he did is really some really memorable toys. Obviously, all the figures from this era are not the most memorable of characters, but he did have a very distinct style that
Yeah.
went through to the figures that he did, and yeah, we'll touch on them a bit more on in the episodes after this, but yeah, so. I haven't got much else to say on it at this point. We can talk
No,
about
no.
the actual figures when we get to the toy part,
Well,
but
yeah.
yeah.
No, I think the interesting bit coming this year with the toys, and some of the ones that he delivered was the colorings, and we were talking about that off air. That very 90s, you know,
Oh,
91. I
so
always
nice.
think of the neon being a 90s thing. But when I say 90s, I think, oh, that must be about mid 90s. But we're 91 and the toys have already really latched onto that. So, you know, is it literally it turns 1990 and everybody's like, yep, let's go neon. You know, some of the toys are um, crazy, like actual crazy. You look at them, but in a way that it probably now I look back and go, man, like I said to you, I had no interest. Action Masters did not have any
No,
appeal to me at all. Not a jaw. I was like, I don't get it. I just why Transformers. The whole gimmick is transforming. Action Masters didn't work for me. But then I look at, and I've got a screen up just now, and I look, for example, the Action Master Exosuit Thundercracker, and it's what it's like you've given a kid a black and white, you know, color in page and went, right, you've only got crazy crayons. Can you color this character in, please? And they went, yep, let's put them on the out in the shelves. But the colorings in those elites and in the exosuits, I love. And right now, I would quite happily have that Thundercracker sitting on my desk because I'm like, that's so cool. That neon craziness. I love like glow in the dark stuff now. I
it,
like
it,
them. I like them
it,
now.
it is a thing of beauty. I mean, it's been a couple of repaints based on him have surfaced over the years. Is the third party one of
Yeah,
him fairly
yeah,
recently?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's two others that I would like to mention in this
Go for
absolutely bonkers color
it.
schemes. First up is Double Punch, the
Beautiful.
Action Master Elite. He's so good.
Yeah,
I mean, they blatantly decided to make some of the bigger characters as action masters. They did Devastator in the first wave, and now they've gone, oh, let's do a Scorponok. And he transforms into his scorpion mode. He was one one
yeah.
of the last action masters that came out, one of the action masters elites who transformed, thus weirdly negating the whole point of them being
Action
action
Masters.
masters. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't make a lot of sense to me. But
No.
it meant that we had a little Scorponok, and the colors are amazing. The
Yes.
black, it's sort of black Zarak-ish esque. He's
Yeah.
got a black Zarak looking head. Um, but then it's that teal and the orange and the purple. It just looks so absolutely bonkers and so just I love it. I absolutely love it. Um, yeah, I would happily have I would buy a Generation Scorponok in that color scheme, even if it
Have you
was
seen the
300 quid.
Club Con? I think it was the Club Con that did it. Not Club Con.
It
Collectors
was
Club that
BotCon
did.
2010 did
Was it?
the
It's
yeah,
beautiful. Like
got the wiki
actual
page.
ridiculously
Yeah,
beautiful. I saw that at an auto
it's so
assembly
good.
and was that mold, and we'll get to it when we get to that era. There was only a handful of toys that I even appealed to me in the slightest. That mold appealed to me. I had the two kind of normal versions of it, and I absolutely would have quite happily bought the collector's clubs versions of it. It's stunning, absolutely stunning, and it's just brings that character to life in a really nice way. I'd like to. I agree. I'd like to see a Generation Select version of that. Probably same with Omega Supreme. And you're right. We have seen some of these come out. Kind of modern ones. So we've had Slicer come out. Slicer come out, and was that
Mhm.
Generation Selects? That one was, yeah.
Oh,
Um, and I think when I look at the Action Master Bombshell, I just all I'm seeing is that Super Seven. Like that Super Seven is just
yeah,
that Action Master
yeah,
Bombshell, and that's
100%.
that's what it is. It's an Action Master as well. Like it doesn't transform. And you know, I don't know if we've talked about this. The Super Sevens for me, that's how you do your modern Action Masters and Pretenders. Like do your Pretender shells in that style. Don't you have a robot? You know, let's you know, if I was Hasbro, I'd go like you go and do your bombshell, sorry, your pretender shell. We'll do the robot for it, and you just have them together. They just don't go into each other. like that's the best we're going to get. But the colors on these are just stunning. Like some of them are
I,
just crazy and very exciting. But this is not the only toys of this year. You have some exceptional toys. One that's on my list, very much for my son and I have a ongoing collection of Lamborghini Countachs. He loves Lamborghini, and Countach is my favorite Lamborghini, so we are continually trying to pick up Lamborghini Countachs. So the Motivator Flame is absolutely on my pickup list at some point in the future. But the Motivators are cracking. But the best toy of the year, and I'll be upfront. This is going to be absolutely mine. Is the incredible Overlord. Like you look at Overlord and think, how did they just sneak this thing in? And it's just something to behold. It is an absolute monstrosity and goes against everything else that we've got that year. Like you think about all the rest of them. This is so proper G1. I know these are still G1, but the colours and stuff don't feel like the original stuff. Whereas this feels like this could have come out 2 or 3 years before this easily and absolutely fitted in. An absolute stunning piece. What's your
yeah,
thoughts on the mighty Overlord?
I, I like so many things in this era. I wasn't massively aware of it at the time. I think I might have seen it in a toy shop at one point or on holiday or something, and thought, oh, that's awesome. But I mean, I've had it in my hands and messed around with it around a mate's house quite recently. It's just an incredible piece of kit. It's huge. It's got great alt modes. It's a double pretender Power Master with his uh
Oops.
boob powers. Um, he's yeah. And he's had so many different like roles and variations within the comics and in the cartoons or the Japanese cartoons,
Mhm.
and some really stonking third party versions of him.
Oh yes.
And Hasbro redid him a few years ago, which was fine. Um, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad toy.
It's
It's
not. No,
not
it's not. Not the slightest.
it is not the best by any means, but it is a really nice, albeit small, update over
Yeah.
of the character. It would be really nice to see them give another crack at him. Maybe even a Titan would be too big, I suppose. But hell, no, Titan. Give him a Titan class. He looks awesome, or at least a
Leader
Commander
class.
class these days.
No, Commander class. Yeah, Commander
Commander
class. I
class.
think
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
the way I would want to see it go. Yeah, Overlord is, and he also had some phenomenal written stories. I've
yeah.
talked that I've only just recently rewatched Master Force and now really appreciate him more for that part of it. But you can't underestimate the stuff he did that they had him doing in IDW.
Oh
Last
yeah.
Stand of Records is one of the best comic series out there. And then just as you say, third party, I've got my MMC.
Mm,
I can't think what it's called now. Not
yeah.
MMC Overlord, obviously, but it's MMC something's version of Overlord. But the original toy is still a gorgeous toy, an absolutely gorgeous toy. And I'm not picking them for my talking robots this week because I'm going to go with the with Flame because I've never experienced them. I have experienced an Overlord. I
Mm,
experienced a Junker Overlord. I nearly bought it just because I thought I need to have this. And I thought, oh no, I want a really nice one. But the really nice ones are a lot more expensive. But
just,
he is
just
definitely on my. He would be top of. I don't have a Holy Grail anymore because I own my Holy Grail, and I still firmly believe you have one Holy Grail. So once you've got it, it's still a Holy Grail. You own your Holy Grail.
mm,
But of all the G1 stuff out there, if you only let me pick one more G1 to experience, it would be Overlord. I would want that in my collection. It
yeah.
is an absolute stunning toy.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. I just remembered actually the first time I saw him out of the box was in a model, a toy and model shop. They had a load of secondhand Transformers in there, and they had Overlord, and I was like, oh, who's this? Because I wasn't massively sure. I don't really remember seeing him as a kid, and yeah. but they only had the tank part. I nearly bought it, but it didn't transform properly, so I didn't. Wish I did now.
I know. I know. I wish that so many things, so many things, and this year's a good year because you look at some of the classics they brought back this year. We've talked about the classics last week, and
Mm,
the first chance to reissue some stonking toys, like absolute
100%.
cracking toys, this year round. You look at the triple changers, like the love for the triple changers cannot be underestimated. I think they're an absolute stunning set of toys. So you get them brought back out again. But you only get two of the Decepticon ones. So you only get, oh no, you
Only
only get two of the
two in each,
Autobots as
yeah.
well, don't you? Yeah. Same as Dinobots, you don't get all five of the Dinobots. We know we'd have obviously swip anyway. But no slags. There's no slags in the 90s. So already away chuckling to myself like a child, like an absolute child. But you know, I wish I'd saw more of these. 91 was a point where I wasn't really at the toy shops as much, but I wish I'd seen more of these to be able to pick them up. Like, I'd have definitely picked up a Sideswipe.
Oh,
He was always one
100%.
I wanted to pick up.
Yeah.
This is the era that your Protectobots, your um, Combaticons. I know I had a couple of those guys, but what a what a time to be picking them up. And I know people who picked up pretty much got all the gold box stuff and the gold releases. And I would love to go back to that. I'd love for them just to bring out that this year and go, yep, we're going to just for the 40th anniversary, we are going to re-release like all these, you're lucky if you get two or three re-releases. These retro releases, you're getting what, two at a time. We've had three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine,
Well,
10,
again,
10 retro releases. That's not actually bad. 10 G1s,
no,
and
no,
basically, you're actually is not terrible.
but most of the time it's the same figures.
Yeah.
I think just about every reissue's had a Starscream, the Insecticons, the
Soundwave.
Hot Rod, Soundwave, or Soundwave is. I'm surprised there's anything left in that mold. I swear they're just remolding various
That's it.
remolds
See, if
in
you
order
look at
to.
it, it's actually not. It's not even the same molds. We were talking about this. So obviously, we've also the original re-release was the double-chested one,
Mm,
but looking at the cassette buttons are different to this to G1, so that it's not the exact same.
yeah.
And I was re-listening to one of the Triple Takeover episodes, and they were talking about changing the stacks in Optimus, and the reissue is not a pattern. They're always a little tweak. They're always changing things. So it's not a
Mm.
perfect reissue. So it's not as if they just keep reusing the molds. They do tweaks here and there, but you know, I look at the ones on this. I would kill for a Sideswipe to get reissued now. Like
Oh,
absolutely, I'd
yeah.
be like, that's amazing. Reissuing the triple changers, like Grimlock, just reissued Grimlock. Like, how many people would love a pristine Grimlock right now? And that's
Yeah.
the bit that it's disappointing when you look and going, well, they did it back then. Surely they can do it again now. And obviously not, but who knows? Who knows? Because what this year is going to be an interesting year. We're going to have more missing link. We'll have more retro releases. That's the way to satisfy us. But yeah, back onto this year. Imagine walking into this toy store and seeing the throttle bots, the protector bots, the combaticons, your devastator gift set, your defensor gift set. Who's
I
buying
remember.
those silly, colourful ones when you see these beautiful toys on the shelf?
I distinctly remember seeing them in the shops. I remember seeing them in Toys R Us. I think either it was around this time we got a Toys R Us near me, and so I used to get my mum to get what was I like, what, 13? So I used to get my mum to drive us down there until we got a bit older and started to cycle down there. But yeah, I remember seeing the gold boxes. I remember seeing them in the shops, but it was when I was just getting out of Transformers, so I wasn't. Well,
Yeah.
it was probably a few years after I got out of Transformers, really at that point. So I wasn't really wanting to buy them, which seems bonkers now. But yeah, they were just.
Agree.
And got to remember as well at this point, Transformers as well. It was a, an end of line toy. So you didn't have the big sections with all the figures in it like you used to. It would be shoved on the end next to whatever else was about that, or turtles and um, I think X-Men figures
Power
and
Rangers. Power Rangers
Power
were the big one at
Rangers.
this point. I was trying to think
Um,
of that last week. We were talking about new cartoons, and I was like, what was the new big ones? And I think, well, is Turtles the big one? I forget how big Power Rangers was. Power Rangers
yeah,
was huge. I don't think it was 91. I think it was a little bit later than
I
this.
think it's a little bit
But
later than
you're
that. Yeah,
right. That's at a point where there's not going to be that many. I remember seeing the Action Masters, but I couldn't tell you if I'd saw this range of Action Masters, it was the previous ones. But this was very much at the end of the line. This was, as you say, they were almost just, oh, what are we going to do this year? Oh, what about a transform? It doesn't transform. Yeah, why not? It didn't it doesn't have the same oomph as previous years. I think back to year when they're bringing out Target Masters and Headmasters, and let's give it all these cool gimmicks. It felt like they were just going, like, let's just take every gimmick out yet, even the original
yeah.
Transforming gimmick in it. It's
Let's not
an
forget
interesting period.
we did have 4 Action Master Elites that could transform. Don't
Ah.
forget. And of course, sorry, I forgot to mention earlier, but my favoritely named Action Master was the Omega Supreme figure, who inexplicably was called Omega Spreem, 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 and he was a neon nightmare, batshit. He actually transformed and looked like Scorponok's little dude, whose name escapes me. Um, but yeah, anyway,
Fast track.
yeah, 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 that sounds right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
his alt mode looked like that, and alt mode in the loosest possible sense of the word. You basically bent him over and put his arms out in front of him. I mean, you could literally do it with oh, I don't have.
I
Oh, I did.
know.
Yeah, you could actually do it with a reaction figure. There we go. There
And
is.
the Action Master, like I said, it was Super Sevens being great for it. Action Masters and like reaction figures are just the same thing. But
Oh,
I
100%.
really like the reaction stuff. I don't know. I've
Oh no,
always,
love it, love
even
it.
for the the reaction figures first come out, with not being Transformers, I bought into them. But and reaction figures gave me my first ever Skyfire official toy, so
Yeah.
I
You,
do like
you,
them. But again, I think I have the same feeling for this as I did around the Unicron trilogy. I wanted it to be what I wanted it to be. So I wanted at that point, which is the irony of the classic stuff. I still wanted, very much still wanted that 84, 85, 86 era toy. And it was so far off that I wasn't even looking at Transformer sections. So even if these were on the shelf, the classics on the shelf, I wasn't going to see them because I was so switched off. It wasn't doing it for me.
mm,
But see, now I look back and go, I don't need it to do that anymore because I've got the modern versions of my Starscream and my Soundwave and stuff. So now I can look back at this era and go, actually, I can see why they're fun. I can see what I would enjoy about them. I can
yeah,
look at the one that can pull me out is this the Thundercracker. I can see why that's fun. I definitely didn't think that at the time, but I didn't think that about the Unicron trilogy, and I've now went back and went, actually, I quite like that. Same as Master Force or the Japanese stuff. I was like, it's that was coming up. I was like, I just want G1. I don't want G1. Now we've had so an abundance of G1 that we should be okay with going back and looking at these older bits and enjoying them for what they were. And I certainly have that feeling more at this point, but a very thin lineup, like new toy wise, what are we talking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18. How many were in the original lineup? My poster's behind me. More
more.
than 18.
Yeah,
So, a
even with the
very thin
reduced
wave.
line we got, yeah. Um, and one thing I haven't touched upon is the motivators were actually repaints and slight remolds of Japanese figures, which is something they hadn't had for years. Everything had been Hasbro produced, Hasbro made,
Yep.
mostly anyway. Um, uh, and the things that weren't that apart from things like Powermaster Optimus Prime, but we didn't have the God Armor, we didn't have God Bomber. Um, so most of the stuff was American produced. Um, which means that it was quite interesting to get things like the motivators, and they did this a bit with G2 as well. With
Mhm.
uh, we had all some of the parts of Leo Kaiser, but they didn't obviously combine. And obviously, the motivators were Breastmasters, oh sorry, Brainmasters rather, and were combined to form Leo. Oh, what's his name? Not Leo Kaiser, the other one. Road
Rhodes,
Caesar. Road
yeah,
Caesar. Yeah. Um, but was missing with the kibble and stuff to make him
yeah,
into that mode. So you had these three fairly cool uh, Autobot cars that didn't do anything um, more interesting, which is weird. It's weird that they
yeah.
didn't give them the combining
It is,
gimmick.
it is, and it must be weird. Like if you'd experienced them when they first came out, and then later learned that
Yeah,
they were missing something, that'd have been a really interesting experience to go, whoa, 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 yeah, man, that was maybe even cooler.
yeah,
But and I think it's interesting because obviously at this point we're talking about the Japanese stuff coming over here. There's then parts of the next 2 or 3 years where toys don't get released or then get released under a different banner in future years. So
yeah,
and we'll talk about the Machine Wars and the G2 and the
yeah,
stuff like that. I think there'll be a real interesting conversation around that aspect. That how much Andy Cousins obviously brought a lot over it. This brought a lot to this year. He
mm,
brought more to this year than he did any other year. But how many molds that he worked on, or were in the background at Hasbro that they were kind of just were they just going with what's the cheapest to get out just now, and then not doing it, and then later on they then went, that's how do we reuse the mold. So no, it's an interesting year. I know we're going to go through it into 92. When we get into 92, we'll have a similar conversation. It's not until we get into the you know, Beast Wars save Transformers. Don't worry, we'll get to that conversation. The Beast Wars save Transformers. We all know it. All hail Optimus Primal. But it's a challenging time for the brand. And anybody at this point looking at that lineup, the comics getting cancelled in America, there's nothing in America new. You would not be shocked if we were to then say, right, that's it. And the next again year, there was nothing else like Mask, like a Centurions. The fact that even though this year was so limited and so dark, we're still sitting all these years later and talking about it. So it just shows that there's going to be interesting stories in the
yeah.
upcoming weeks as the franchise comes back from the grave to an extent. And I always joke about the Beast Wars one, but even Hasbro didn't believe in Beast Wars. They didn't even produce it themselves. That's how much they didn't believe in Beast Wars. It was just an almost, we've got a brand, we think it might do money. Let's just chuck it to one of our subsidiaries. So we'll get to that conversation.
It is boggling to think that this is only, what, 7 years after the birth of the line, and we're already at the point where they've basically given up, and there's nothing new or decent coming out. These days, we haven't had a break from Transformers since, well, since Beast Wars. We've
No,
never really had a break, but
no.
like one line has continued on for, I mean, generations. Okay, generations had different iterations in the same way that G1 has, but it's been going for donkeys now, and
We,
it's boggling to think that it wouldn't continue.
and like, there's a way to think. I'll often think, for me, not that G1 ends with it, but I always categorize where my collection stops as at the end of at kind of 1980. So I don't know. I would probably say up to the fourth year. The first 4 years are where I think that's what I
Hmm.
want. Like that's where my love is with. And if I think of that as, but I know it's not, but think of that as G1, then you look at this year and you look at the fact that on shelves there was more of that era toy than there
Yeah.
was of the current era toy. Can you imagine that in any other year since? Can you imagine this year they went, guys, we're not going to have our own legacy's just going on hold and we're going to reissue everything. Now, that being said, I would love that.
Oh yeah, 100.
Hasbro, if
Yeah.
you're listening, just do that. but they're not going to do that. And you look at it and go, well, there was actually more Autobot reissues than there was the entire line. Never mind the Decepticons. So it showed you that they even then understood the value of the initial bit of the brand.
Yeah.
How did they maximize on that? They were obviously they've teased it a wee bit with
Maximize.
Action Master, Soundwaves, and Optimus and stuff, but they've not really got to where they are now, where they go, yeah, every 2 years, let's chuck out a new Optimus Prime because some mug will buy every Optimus Prime.
Can't think of anybody who would do that. Um, But yeah, also, but thinking about it as well, they're bringing out classics, reissues of figures that are only 6 or 7 years old. Because classics started in 1990, so they were only 6 years old at that point. So if we had reissues, a whole wave of classic figures for figures today that are 6 years old, what's that going to be? What? Power of the Primes? Maybe?
Yeah. Titans Return. To be fair, they brought us some Titans Return. I think people would be all right. Bring out Titans Return,
Well, yeah,
Fortress Maximus. Well, they have. They're reissuing that. And
yeah.
yeah, you're right. But you're like, it's a really interesting time in the franchise, and one that I don't think we'll ever get to this dark phase of how limited new releases there is ever again. The brand's far too big now, to ever
Oh,
get that.
100%.
It's far too valuable. But I think it speaks volumes for the legacy of the line to understand where you came from. And if you've not seen these toys, do indulge yourself. Go and have a look on Wiki, on I like Transformer Land. Loads of resources out there to go and look at these toys. So if you've not seen them, I do implore you to go and have a look at the kind of these ones, specifically things like Omega Supreme and the Thundercracker and all these kind of fun and wacky colours, and remind yourself how much drugs were the people in Hasbro on coming up with these colour schemes. But right, let's finish off then. Mine's is always going to be one character from this, like yours was with Power Master Prime. My absolute favourite of this line of this year and probably this era was Overlord, a toy that I never had myself, but what a stonkingly beautiful G1 toy at a point where G1 didn't feel like it was G1 anymore.
Yeah, no, I can't have him because you've got him. So you keep him. I could be really lame and say reissue Optimus Prime, but I'm not. I'm going to go with Omega Supreme because A, he's just a neon nightmare of just bonkers colors. B, he's Omega Supreme, who's awesome, and C, he's called Omega Supreme, and that in itself is enough to win in my book.
Well, that's a good choice, and again, I could have easily just went with. I do have to say, that the colours and the Action Masters, I could have picked a colour one, but Overlord just trumps them all. Oh, absolutely trumps them all. So an easy choice for me. So thank you so much. That's been a look back at Transformers in 1991. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a chance to look at these toys. That's really the only toys to talk about this year, but they're fun and certainly crazy and wacky. Kind of a bit like Funhouse. So, if you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, make sure you don't miss anything. And this incredible journey is going to get busier, crazier. There's going to be some amazing toys coming up in the next few weeks. So please remember, we also produce our mini weekly episodes like Talking Robots Tuesday, some retro reviews, Prime Time with Oddimus Prime, which this week, who was your favourite Optimus Prime this week? So subscribing to the channel will make sure you keep up to date with everything going on from PTTV and don't miss any of our wonderful content on this journey. Any final thoughts, Simon, before we say goodbye?
No, that's about it from me this week.
Awesome.
I'm going to go and watch the Transformers 1 trailer again.
Yay! Right. Thank you all. See you later.
See ya.